You want to know what betrayal feels like? It feels like being 17, standing in front of your high school mirror in a pale blue prom dress your mother helped you pick out, and finding out, minutes before you're supposed to leave, that your sister is already on her way to the dance with your boyfriend. My name is Emily Hartman, and 10 years ago, my sister Sabrina did the unthinkable. She stole the boy I loved, the boy I thought I'd spend forever with. His name was Ryan Miller, and he wasn't just my high school sweetheart. He was my best friend, my secret keeper, the person who believed in me when I barely believed in myself. And just like that, with a single betrayal, everything I thought I knew about love, about family, about trust, was shattered. Fast forward 10 years. Last night was my high school reunion, the night where everyone shows up to prove how far they've come. I almost didn't go. Why would I? To watch Sabrina waltz in on Ryan's arm, both of them smirking as if the whole world revolved around them. To hear her brag about his money, his business, his success, as if she had anything to do with it. But something inside me told me I had to. Not for them, but for me. To face the past. To stop running. So I walked into that reunion hall with my head held high. And just like clockwork, Sabrina showed up, draped in diamonds, Ryan trailing behind her in a tailored suit. She looked me up and down like I was still that timid little sister hiding in the shadows. And with a smile as sharp as a knife, she said, "Well, Em, still alone after all these years?" That laugh of hers cut through me like it always had. That smug tilt of her chin, that glint in her eyes that said she'd won, again. The room was buzzing. Old classmates leaned in to listen. And for a moment, I felt that same 17-year-old heartbreak crawling back, whispering, "You'll never be enough." But here's the thing. Heartbreak doesn't last forever. Pain doesn't stay pain if you learn how to use it. I didn't answer her with tears. I didn't shrink back into silence. Instead, I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and smiled. "Are you here yet?" I said softly, as if talking to someone just outside. Everyone turned toward the doors. And then it happened. Headlights poured through the windows, stopping right in front of the hall. A sleek car rolled up, its engine low and steady. My classmates craned their necks, whispers rippling through the crowd. Sabrina's laugh faltered, her hand tightening around Ryan's arm. The car window slid down, and in that single moment, Sabrina's face went white. She actually stumbled back a step, because the man inside wasn't hers. He wasn't laughing with her. He wasn't holding her hand. He was looking straight at me. That's how my reunion started. That's how my past collided with my present in the most unexpected, jaw-dropping way imaginable. And if you think this story is about a boy, you're wrong. This story is about betrayal, about reclaiming your power, and about learning that sometimes the best revenge is living with quiet confidence until the truth speaks for itself. If you really want to understand why last night's reunion meant so much to me, you have to know where it all started. I grew up in a quiet little town called Maplewood, Ohio, the kind of place where everybody knows your name and your business travels faster than the wind. My family lived in a modest 2-story house on Elmwood Street. We weren't poor, but we weren't exactly wealthy either. My dad, George Hartman, worked long hours as a mechanic. My mom, Caroline Hartman, was a high school English teacher. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family. 2 parents, 2 daughters, a golden retriever named Scout. But on the inside, things were never quite balanced. My sister, Sabrina, was the star. She was 2 years older, louder, bolder, the kind of girl people couldn't ignore even if they tried. Teachers adored her. Boys lined up for her attention, and my mother always beamed when Sabrina walked into a room. And then there was me, Emily, the quiet one. I wasn't shy exactly, but I wasn't Sabrina. I didn't demand the spotlight. I liked books more than parties, and instead of chasing popularity, I found comfort in my small circle of friends. The truth? I always felt like I was standing in Sabrina's shadow. My father noticed. He'd sometimes find me sitting on the back porch after school, listening to the crickets, trying not to cry. He'd sit down beside me, smelling faintly of oil and gasoline, and he'd say, "You don't need to shine like Sabrina. The right people will see your light without you forcing it." Those words stuck with me, even though back then they felt like small comfort compared to Sabrina's glittering glow. And then came Ryan Miller. Ryan wasn't like the other boys at Maplewood High. He wasn't chasing Sabrina or trying to be the class clown. He was kind. He was smart. He had this quiet confidence that drew me in, the same way the first warm day of spring does after a long winter. He noticed me, really noticed me, in ways no one else ever had. We met in sophomore year when we got paired up for a history project. At first, I thought he was just being polite, but by the end of the project, I found myself laughing more than I ever had. He made me feel seen. By junior year, we were inseparable. We went to football games together, shared milkshakes at the diner downtown, and spent summer nights lying on the hood of his car, staring at the stars, talking about everything we wanted in life. Ryan was my first love, my first kiss, my first dream of forever. Of course, Sabrina noticed. She always noticed when something made me happy. At first, she teased me, calling Ryan Mr. Perfect and rolling her eyes whenever he came around. My mom laughed at her jokes, but my dad shot her a look each time like he knew where this was heading. I should have seen it coming. I should have known that Sabrina wouldn't let me have something or someone she couldn't. But I was too caught up in the fantasy, too caught up in Ryan and me against the world. And then came that night. The prom. The betrayal. I don't think I need to tell you what it feels like to watch your sister walk into the most important night of your teenage life with the boy you love. It's humiliation. It's heartbreak. It's betrayal that cuts so deep it leaves scars you don't notice until years later. The worst part wasn't just losing Ryan. It was realizing my sister would rather break me than see me happy. After that night, things in my family changed. I pulled away. My mom defended Sabrina, saying, "It's just high school drama, Emily. You'll move on." But my dad sat with me in the garage, his rough hands stained with grease, and whispered, "She may have won this round, but life is long. Don't let her take your future, too." Those words saved me. They reminded me to keep moving, even when it hurt. The years that followed weren't easy. I learned how to build my life without Ryan, without trust in my sister, and without waiting for anyone to rescue me. I threw myself into college, into work, into building a life that was mine. A quiet life, maybe, but honest, independent, strong. And that's the woman who walked into the reunion last night, not the heartbroken 17-year-old girl who lost everything in one night, but the woman who had rebuilt herself from the ground up. Still, walking into that room, knowing Sabrina would be there with Ryan, knowing they had built a life, a story off of my heartbreak wasn't easy. My hands shook as I opened the doors. My heart raced as I saw familiar faces turn my way. And when I saw Sabrina, still glowing, still smug, still holding Ryan's arm like a trophy, every old wound reopened. But this time, I wasn't the girl who cried on the back porch. This time, I was ready. Walking into the Maplewood High reunion was like stepping into a time capsule. The gymnasium had been dressed up with string lights and banners, but I still recognized the same scuffed hardwood floors where I'd once sat cross-legged during pep rallies. A DJ played throwback songs from the 2000s, and groups of old classmates clustered together, laughing and catching up. At first, I managed a small smile. People came up to me, some I hadn't seen in a decade, asking how I'd been, what I was doing now. I told them about my work as a graphic designer in Columbus, about the small apartment I loved, about my independence. It felt good for a moment to be seen for who I'd become instead of who I used to be. But then the doors opened, and there she was. Sabrina, my older sister, looking like she had been plucked out of a glossy magazine spread. Her hair shone under the lights, her red dress sparkled like fire, and she walked in with her usual air, of victory. But she wasn't alone. Beside her was Ryan Miller, my Ryan. Except he wasn't the lanky, nervous boy I remembered. He was broader now, polished, confident in a dark tailored suit that screamed wealth and success. The crowd shifted toward them like iron filings to a magnet. Everyone wanted to see the golden couple, Sabrina, the hometown queen, and Ryan, the boy who had gone from small-town quarterback to tech millionaire. I froze. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. It was as if every wound from that night 10 years ago had been ripped open in front of me. I wanted to leave, to run before they saw me, but my legs refused to move. Then our eyes met. Ryan looked at me for just a second, and something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But before I could be sure, Sabrina's laughter rang out sharp and cutting, and she pulled him closer. She saw me. Of course she did. She always did. She walked over, her heels clicking against the floor like a victory march. Her smile was wide, polished, practiced, the kind of smile that had always hidden her cruelty from everyone but me. "Well, well, Em," she said, her voice carrying just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Still alone after all these years?" A few heads turned. A couple of people stifled awkward laughs. I felt my face burn, but I refused to look down. Not this time. "Not everything worth having is on display, Sabrina," I said quietly but firmly. Her smile faltered just for a heartbeat before she leaned in closer, her perfume sharp and suffocating. "Oh, come on! You're telling me you came here alone? Still holding on to old memories? Ryan and we've built something real. You should have known he'd never stick around for someone like you." I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. Her words sliced deeper than I wanted to admit. And Ryan, he just stood there, silent, looking everywhere but at me. That was the moment when the whispers started. Old classmates huddled, glancing between us. Some pitied me. Others enjoyed the show. It felt like I was back in high school, humiliated, small, invisible under Sabrina's spotlight. My heart pounded. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw every ounce of anger I'd buried over the years back in her face. Another part wanted to crumble, to let her win again. But deep inside, a quieter voice, my father's voice, reminded me, "Don't let her take your future too." So instead of breaking, I straightened my shoulders. I looked her right in the eye, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the little sister who lived in her shadow. I felt like me. Sabrina must have noticed the change because she laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. "Well, enjoy the night, Em. Maybe you'll finally meet someone who doesn't run away." She turned with Ryan at her side, her laughter trailing behind her like poison in the air, and I stood there, trembling, but not from fear, from determination. Because in that moment, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let Sabrina write the story of my life again. After Sabrina's cutting words, I stood there in the center of that gym, surrounded by old classmates, their stares heavy on me. Some sympathetic, some curious, some clearly enjoying the drama unfolding, like we were still teenagers trapped in high school politics. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell everyone the truth about how Sabrina had stolen Ryan, how she'd betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. But I didn't, because I realized something in that moment. Sabrina wanted me to break. She thrived on it. Every time she made me feel small, every time she drew blood with her words, she fed on it. And I wasn't giving her that anymore. I excused myself from the circle of whispers and walked toward the refreshment table, trying to gather my thoughts. My hands were trembling, but not from fear this time, from anticipation. Because as much as I wanted to throw her cruelty back in her face, I had something else, something bigger. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the screen. For weeks, I had debated whether or not to do this, to involve someone who had become a steady part of my life these last 2 years. Someone who knew the whole story, who understood the scars my sister had left behind. He had told me more than once, "If you ever need backup, if you ever need someone to stand beside you, call me." And tonight, looking into Sabrina's smug eyes, I finally believed him. I typed quickly, "We're ready." "Pull up now." The message sent with a small swoosh, and my heart steadied. For the first time all evening, I felt control slipping back into my hands. I turned back toward the crowd where Sabrina was still basking in her little performance. She was surrounded by admirers, her laughter loud and hollow, Ryan silent at her side like a prize she had polished just for the night. Her eyes flicked toward me once, and she must have seen the small smile tugging at my lips, because her own faltered ever so slightly. "What are you smiling at, Em?" she asked, her voice just sharp enough to slice through the room's chatter. I met her gaze, calm and unflinching. "You'll see." That answer unsettled her. I could tell. The corners of her mouth twitched, her fingers gripping Ryan's arm tighter. For the first time in years, she wasn't entirely sure she held the upper hand. The minutes that followed stretched long. I mingled with a few old friends, but my ears stayed sharp, my pulse steady, waiting for the sound I knew was coming. Every tick of the clock brought me closer, and then I heard it. The low, steady purr of an engine pulling up outside the gym. The headlights streamed through the glass-paneled doors, cutting across the polished floor. Conversations faltered. People turned toward the windows, whispering. Sabrina froze, her laughter dying in her throat. I slipped my phone back into my purse and walked slowly toward the entrance. My heels clicked softly against the floor, echoing through the silence that had suddenly fallen over the room. All eyes were on me now, not on her. As I reached the door, I pulled it open. Cool night air rushed in, carrying with it the sound of the idling car. The crowd pressed forward, curiosity buzzing. I leaned against the frame casually, my voice steady. "Are you here yet?" I asked softly, as though speaking to someone just beyond the threshold. And then, right on cue, the car window began to roll down. The car idled just outside the reunion hall, headlights cutting two bright paths across the polished floor. Conversations that had buzzed a moment earlier now hung suspended in the air, silenced by curiosity. Everyone's attention turned to the entrance where I stood, leaning against the doorframe like I had been waiting for this very moment. Behind me, I heard Sabrina's sharp inhale. "What is this, Emily?" she demanded, her voice louder than necessary, meant to draw the crowd back to her. But it was too late. The room's energy had shifted, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one standing in her shadow. I didn't answer her. Instead, I repeated, calm and deliberate, "Are you here yet?" As if on cue, the tinted window of the sleek black car rolled down, and there he was, Ryan Miller. Not the boy who had walked away from me 10 years ago, not the silent shadow who had trailed beside Sabrina moments earlier, but the man he had become, polished, commanding, and unmistakably his own. He leaned slightly out of the window, his eyes fixed not on Sabrina, not on the crowd, but on me. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his voice carrying across the hushed room. "Ready to go?" Gasps rippled through the hall. A few people clapped their hands over their mouths. Sabrina actually stumbled back a step, her hand slipping from Ryan's arm as though she'd been burned. What is this?" she stammered, her eyes darting between me and him. "Ryan, what are you doing?" "We came here together." Ryan's gaze finally shifted to her, and the look he gave her was not the adoration she was used to. It was cold, final. "No, Sabrina," he said flatly. "You came here dragging me along, just like you've been doing for years. But tonight, I'm not playing your game." Her face twisted, the mask cracking for everyone to see. "You can't be serious. After everything, after all this time, you're choosing her? Her?" I could feel every pair of eyes in that gym piercing into us, the tension snapping like live wires. My chest tightened, not from fear this time, but from the power of finally being seen. Ryan stepped out of the car, his tailored suit catching the glow of the headlights. He walked past Sabrina, who reached out for his arm only for him to brush her off without even looking back. Each step echoed like a drumbeat, steady, unstoppable, until he stopped in front of me. "I should have been here for you all along," he said loud enough for the crowd to hear, "and I let you down. But I'm not letting you face her alone anymore." The room erupted in murmurs, gasps, even a few cheers. Sabrina's face went scarlet. She looked around wildly as though searching for someone to side with her, to laugh along, to validate her power the way they always had. But no one stepped forward. The crowd that had once adored her now stood in silent judgment, finally seeing the cracks in her perfection. "Emily," she hissed, her voice low and venomous, "you think this changes anything? You think showing up with him makes you better than me?" I met her eyes, steady, calm, and, for the first time in my life, utterly free. "No, Sabrina," I said quietly, so the whole room had to strain to listen. "It just proves I never needed to compete with you in the first place." Her lips parted, but no words came out. For once, she was the one speechless. Ryan held out his hand. Without hesitation, I took it. Together, we turned toward the door. The crowd parted like a wave, whispers following us as we stepped into the cool night air. The car door swung open, and Ryan guided me inside as though I had always belonged there. Through the window, I caught one last glimpse of Sabrina. She stood in the middle of the gym, surrounded by silence, her expression crumbling. For once, the laughter she had always weaponized was gone. And in that moment, I didn't feel like the girl who had been left behind 10 years ago. I felt like someone who had finally taken back her story. The cool night air wrapped around me as Ryan closed the car door behind me. For the first time all evening, my chest didn't feel tight. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't standing in anyone's shadow. Instead, I sat there in silence, watching the gym fade in the rearview mirror as the car pulled away from the reunion. Ryan slid in beside me, his expression soft but steady. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. It was as though the weight of 10 years sat between us, a fragile silence we were both afraid to break. Finally, he turned to me. "Emily," he said, his voice quieter now, more vulnerable than when he'd stood up to Sabrina in front of everyone. "I owe you an apology. Not just for tonight, for everything." I looked at him, really looked at him. And for a second, I saw the boy I had loved in high school, the boy who had once held my hand at the diner, who had promised me the world under the stars. But I also saw the man he had become, shaped by choices that had cut me deeply. "You hurt me," I said, the words steady but heavy, not just by leaving, by letting her win, by letting me feel like I wasn't worth fighting for. He flinched, his jaw tightening. "I know. I was weak. I let her manipulate me, and I told myself it was easier to go along with it than to face the fallout. But not a single day has gone by where I haven't thought about you, where I haven't wished I had been stronger." Part of me wanted to believe him immediately, to fall back into the comfort of what we had once been, but I had lived 10 years without him. I had learned how to stand on my own 2 feet, how to define myself without being someone's other half. And I wasn't about to forget that just because he showed up in a nice car with perfect timing. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said softly. "Not yet." He nodded, not pushing, not pleading, just listening. "That's fair," he said. "I don't want to erase the past, Emily. I just want the chance to show you that I've changed, that I can be the man you deserved back then." The sincerity in his voice surprised me. For once, this wasn't about Sabrina. It wasn't about high school games or winning points in some twisted sibling rivalry. It was about him and me, standing at the edge of something new. I leaned back in the seat, letting the silence settle again, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was thoughtful, healing. As the car drove us away, I thought about Sabrina, about the look on her face when Ryan had walked past her without a second glance. For the first time in her life, she had been stripped of her power, the performance, the spotlight, the cruel satisfaction of watching me crumble. She was left with only herself. And maybe that was her lesson to learn. Mine, on the other hand, had already been written long before that night. I realized then that my story was never about Ryan leaving or Sabrina stealing. It was about me finding my worth, my voice, my strength, even when it felt like everything had been taken from me. When I walked into that reunion, I was terrified I would walk out broken all over again. But instead, I walked out whole. Not because Ryan showed up, not even because Sabrina was finally put in her place, but because I finally understood something my father had told me years ago. Kindness lasts longer than charm. I didn't need to humiliate my sister. I didn't need revenge. All I needed was to live my truth confidently, and eventually the truth revealed itself. To anyone watching, to anyone who's ever been betrayed by someone they loved, whether it was a sibling, a partner, or a friend, this is what I learned. You don't heal by waiting for an apology or for karma to come around. You heal by standing tall in your own story, by refusing to let someone else define your worth. As for Ryan and me, I don't know where the road will take us. Maybe we'll find our way back to each other. Maybe we won't. But the beauty is, I no longer need the answer to feel whole. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not the girl who lost. I'm the woman who chose herself. And that's my story. 10 years of heartbreak, betrayal, and silence, all leading to one night that changed everything. if there's one thing I hope you take away, it's this: no one, not even family, gets to decide your worth. That's yours to claim. And when you finally stand in it, nothing and no one can take it from you. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had someone betray you in a way you'll never forget? What did you learn from it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories matter. If this video resonated with you, do me a favor. Hit the like button because it really helps this story reach more people who might need it. Share it with a friend who's been through betrayal and needs a little reminder of their strength. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this one. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't payback. It's living your life so fully, so confidently, that the truth speaks louder than any words ever could.